Welcome back to the Social Hotelier Show. I'm Sam-Erik. Today I'm joined by Claude Attala, a visionary who shaped projects from ultra-luxury resorts to integrated lifestyle destinations across Saudi Arabia, Europe and beyond. Claude, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Sam-Erik. It's good to see you. And I've heard a lot about the Social Hotelier, so I'm happy to be on your show.
Well, it's an honor that you take the time. I know you're a very busy man, but you're doing some very interesting stuff, and so we are trying to get into a little bit about the philosophy and how your thoughts about the hospitality, and particularly where the needs of the customers these days. So, you said that hotels of the future won't just be rooms and restaurants, but immersive lifestyle ecosystems. When does a hotel stop being a place to stay and start becoming a place to live, in your opinion?
Well, I tend to go back to my origins of when I was growing up. My father was a hotelier, and I um, I always remember that the lobby became my own living room. The staff became part of my extended family, and the guests became friends. And I've always envisaged, as I was growing up in the hotel industry and went into the hotel industry as well, I always envisaged that as part of, as part of my own sort of, my own sort of breakdown, my personality. And when I started getting into developments a few years ago, I felt that the hotel industry was going into a very sort of monotone sort of experience, and I greatly believe that I really wanted to bring back that sense of home being, that sense of a place that is just not a commercial space, but is a place where I felt comfortable and really wanted to become familiar with. And so this is one of the biggest challenges that we have within the hospitality sector today is how do you become less commercial and how do you actually focus on becoming authentic in a way. So, um, so, um, so a lot of the things that I do today are sort of really orientated around how do we create that place? How do we actually go beyond just creating a concept or a vision, but how do we actually create a place that's going to be engaging and interesting and where people want to come back to? And I think it comes down to one key factor, and it's people.
Yeah. Yeah, and it starts with leadership, how the leadership embraces the whole idea and they create the culture in that environment.
I totally agree. I go back again to my father, who was, a true hotelier, a true leader, and he inspired me to actually lead by example. So it is when you are, sort of managing a group of people, they need to be inspired by their leader, and I think leadership
Yeah,
it plays a predominantly very important role, and that's what I try to bring into some of my projects.
nice. So, what do you find as the biggest challenge in blending wellness, retail, residence, and hospitality into one model? I understand you're working something along those lines.
Yes. Well, I was just recently, about 6 or 7 months ago, have a client in Saudi Arabia based in Riyadh, and they have a plot of land which is 15,000 square meters. And the key question, as you well know, there's a lot of new hotel developments or luxury developments in Riyadh that is taking place at the moment. And it was quite interesting. They said, "What do we do here? Do we create a luxury hotel? Do we have branded residential? We want to create a retail space that is, going to be, very different rather than just a mall." And so we started saying, okay, I started focusing on looking at the clients and how they engage and where they go and what they're looking for, and it came down to being personal, and trying to create something that's going to be engaging. And one of the things that I realized is we don't just want a mall to have generic brands. We want to have, sort of a retail lifestyle experience that is connected as a complete ecosystem. And so we started with looking at the landscape in Riyadh and saying, oh, okay, we've got great luxury hotels. They're very, very commercially related. And so we came up and said, how do we actually make something a little bit more personal? So we started with the hotel and the residential components. Then we looked at various different aspects that Riyadh didn't really have today. Everything's quite big, and a lot of giga projects. But we wanted to create something a little bit more personal, and so we started looking at how do we actually connect that hospitality experience that we're trying to create under a boutique hotel, looking at signature, unique restaurants that don't exist in Riyadh. That could be organic or sustainably orientated. It could be local as well, which is something that we're looking at the moment. And then how do we actually connect that to the lifestyle retail destination as well? And some of the key things that we were looking at is we just sort of want to create a hotel spa, but how do we actually create a wellness destination, geared towards the Riyadh market in particular? How do we actually integrate this whole aspect of the cultural, norms within Riyadh, and integrate something that's going to be a little bit more different? So, and how do we not just create a wellness destination that's just got a branded spa, but it actually is, sort of geared towards looking at the next generation of well-being. And so we looked at and started speaking to not the established brands, but looking at the next generation of spa operators, the next generation of well-being specialists, and looking at something that's going to be very, very niche in its way. And then but the wellness component was one thing, which is actually one thing that's quite an interesting factor in Saudi Arabia, and a lot of people are very conscious of their way they look at things. So, but how do we actually integrate that into the lifestyle retail? So things like we started talking to various different established chefs to create not a cookery school, but a culinary, a gastronomy culinary academy. Then we started saying, okay, well, what else could we do with the culinary experience, and create sort of unique, sort of restaurant concepts around the culinary academy? And then looked at, engaging with some of the most established art galleries in Europe, and how do we actually create that partnership with bringing in something that is going to be culturally relevant in Riyadh as well. So we were in discussions with various different art galleries out of London and in Florence, to create an arts destination linked into the wellness, then linked into one area where it will be a completely dedicated music academy as well. So suddenly we've got all these placemaking elements that we've started thinking about very carefully, and we started curating them, and how do we actually integrate them as one destination. And we categorized them in various different ways. And it was quite interesting because suddenly you start having, as we appointed the lead architect, we started having this incredible destination, with a hotel, branded residential, the wellness component, an art gallery, and various different other components within the thing, which wasn't just a generic retail space or a generic hotel. And we've appointed an interior designer that how do we actually create something that is luxury but is relevant as well, and it will be timeless as something that we have in Europe today. So that's been the approach. It hasn't been just about getting an operator looking at their guidelines, but actually changing things in a very different perspective by listening to the cultural values of that country, like Saudi Arabia as an example, and creating something that's just not a hotel or a retail destination, but completely integrated as one.
Very interesting. Tell me a little bit about the wellness approach, particularly for the Riyadh customers. What are they looking for? What is important to them? Why would they go to a place? What kind of wellness are they expecting?
Well,
Features?
I was inspired because one of the other projects that I'm working in Riyadh is the Cairo Hotel. The Cairo's first hotel was a part of Curzon International, and they launched the Cairo Hotel in One Zabil in Dubai. And when I actually went there, it was this completely different approach to hospitality, where it was really well thought out. And it was the first time I kind of realized, that the whole aspect of well-being, it was not just integrated to having a recovery lab or just talking about going into, a spa or anything like that. It was a completely integrated program that was focused on, you know, key elements. One is having and designing a room that's going to be completely focused on sleep, and making sure that you had blackout curtains, temperature controlled beds. The design of the rooms were very calm and collected. You had a very different approach to the lighting system in place to create calm and collection. And within the room, you had your own gym. That if you didn't so wish to go actually into the public arena, you would actually have you could actually order whatever weights you wanted and all the rest different things. But it wasn't just about that. Is as you arrive in the hotel, part of the program was that you had a dietitian, so and a fitness instructor to be able to guide you in terms of what you were, a program that was dedicated whilst you were staying in this hotel. And so it was about diet. It was about the fitness lab. Rather than calling it gym, it was a fitness lab. Rather than calling it, and then afterwards they call the whole aspect of recovery. As for the elite athletes, as they moved into these sort of areas where you had intensive training, but then also the recovery element and how you actually managed that was quite interesting. And they encompass all that into a hotel product, which we're trying to do in Riyadh as well. And so it suddenly opened my eyes, and I kind of realized, well-being is changing and evolving, and we need to do it in the right sort of way. And we need to make sure that we bring in the right people that are not traditionally hoteliers who build or manage a spa, but bring in experts within the well-being. So when you're looking at the advancement of well-being, things like stem cells and all these things, is how do we actually create a program that's going to be very different and a different approach, and bringing that into new developments and within the hospitality sector. So that's what's quite exciting as I've evolved, is looking at these interesting developments where they're very, very different. And we look at it in a very different way.
Very good. So it brings us to a kind of question. If the old model of luxury is fading, what replaces it? You talked about the shift from opulence to authenticity. Well, I guess from chandeliers to storytelling. You mentioned something about Quinta de Adorjo in Portugal as a perfect example. Will tomorrow's traveler really choose authenticity over prestige?
I think there's going to be place for both. And what I'm seeing, and I see this on a personal, my own personal perspective when I'm traveling, is when you go to the Douro Valley, for instance, the hotel that we're involved in is actually immersed within a vineyard, part of a winery, and you've got spectacular views over the Douro River. And the way the whole development has been sort of realized, the focus has been immersive sort of development within nature. And those are the sort of things that I think more people are engaged. They want. I think luxury is calm, is no commercial noise in any way. And how do we actually interpret that in our own ways is changing. I think that there is a generational change in terms of what our expectations are, and I think there will be place for both. But I think we're definitely looking at something. When you look at luxury, we're looking at luxury in a very different way today.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you keep an experience authentic without making them feel staged? Because I feel there are times when you go to these places where you feel they're kind of staged rather than authentic. And that's really a fine line how they are creating those experiences.
I think a lot of the times, from my own experiences that I've had, around the world, is that you have to try to bring in the local touch and understand the local elements of where you're trying to create a destination. Unfortunately, in today's world, this fast world, we're becoming very homogenized, where basically everything seems to be the same, seems to, there's nothing authentic anymore in terms of actually looking at whether you go to Italy or France or, Portugal for that matter. It seems to be all very much the same in terms of design, in terms of approach. I think what we're seeing is a transition. People are wanting to actually understand more cultural elements in terms of various different places they go to. I think when you do go to Paris, you'd like to go to the old hat shop that's been there for the last 100 years. I think a lot of it is going back to more bespoke approaches, more bespoke experiences, where things are not just corporate or generic. And I think unfortunately, what's happened is that we talk about cultural, sort of concepts and ideas which have been curated by marketing companies rather than trying to understand what the local values are of that specific destination that you like to be involved. And you need to be immersed within the local environment in order to create that genuine feeling. And I think that's where we are hopefully going towards. And this is the kind of place that I would like to be part of. I always go a small little place that I had sort of gone in Austria in the middle of the countryside. And they had this little restaurant that'd been there for 100 years. And one of the key things that I was really interested about it is everything was within the vicinity of 20 kilometers. So all the food and everything else was localized. And that created, and the moment you checked out of this hotel, and the hotel was full of the family's art collection, and the moment you checked out of the hotel, they gave you a sort of a bread, a loaf of bread that was actually baked by the chef of the hotel with all local ingredients. And I think that was 10 years ago, and I still remember that experience. And I think I try, as I get involved with developers and owners, I try to bring that whole aspect of it, or wherever that, wherever we tend to get involved in. So I think, I hope I've answered your question now.
You certainly do. But I like to lead it to what's the single most powerful element that makes luxury meaningful? Is it design, storytelling, or community, or a combination of all those?
I think it's a combination of all. I definitely think I think it needs to be, when you look at luxury, it shouldn't shout. It shouldn't be, obtrusive to the extent where you actually feel that it's actually not genuine experience anymore. So I think a combination of all those.
So all of this leads to your boldest idea yet. Hotels are as a cultural hubs, platforms for transformation. You described hotels of the future as cultural anchors, blending wellness, residences, retail, and hospitality into hybrid models. Can profitability and purpose truly align?
Absolutely, yeah. No, definitely. I think.
Or are investors ready to back up the purpose-driven projects? I guess that's a fundamental question.
I think if the intelligent investors are, definitely ones that are actually thinking about the future. We are in discussions with various different funds, and they're looking at an alternative approach to the hospitality sector and what we offer. Rather than the mainstream, big brands that seem to be controlling everything in terms of the hospitality sector. So I think the intelligent investors, the ones that have innovative drive and looking at things in a very different way, that are that want to to look at it, I think are more. You'll see more and more of it in the future. I see it's very apparent here in the Middle East, in particular, where if you look at places like Dubai, they're really pushing the boundary in terms of driven projects. And if you look at the Syro, there was a risk in the first place, but this could be rolled out as a next brand that is predominantly focused on a new alternative way of looking at fitness and integrated within a hotel experience. So I think the intelligent investors definitely would back a purpose-driven project as long as it made sense and it was driven and it was unique in its own approach.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, you have such a long career, Claude. What lessons from your past projects guide you today?
I think one of the things, one of the biggest things that I've had through my own experiences is it's great to plan, visionary projects, and I've been involved in some of the big master plan development communities, and how do we actually create a destination integrating hotel, retail, and branded residential. And one of the things that I over and over again I see is it's great to design and bring in star architects and things like that. But what I found is if you don't have a well detailed operational plan in relation to the design, and that's where I find that if you don't have a broad understanding of how a hotel functions, no matter what kind of star architect that you bring in or whatever designer that you bring in, if you don't have those fundamentals, then from my own experience, we have failed it. In terms of actually creating something that's going to be unique in terms of in terms of a unique hotel hospitality offering. So I think operationally, well planned operational sort of planning leading to the rest of the design components of creating mixed use or hotel development is crucial. And I've seen and I have been involved in failed projects where, whether it's on the retail side, where we didn't have a broader understanding of the retail operations and how that was all interconnected with each other, and a hotel where it was we took over a design and we couldn't really change anything. Those became realized projects, but also at the same time they became challenging operations and challenging assets in order to create that unique experience that we all strive for. So I think that is one of the key lessons that I've learned from my own experiences in the past. So having a good operational and broad understanding of how a hotel operates is crucial.
Yeah. Okay. Can you take out your crystal ball of the future? I have a final question for you. If you had to define the hotel of 2040 in one sentence, what would it be?
I generally, this is a very good question actually, because as we evolve, and I've been involved in hotels, and hospitality sector since I was 5. So and to see how it's evolved, I think we're going to see the 2040 hotel to be a very sustainably orientated, culturally curated, place rather than defining it as a hotel. It would be a destination in its own right. And I think it has to be culturally relevant, and it also has to be something that is focused on a genuine experience where it becomes an experience that you want to come back to. And I think we need to come back to that and start thinking, how do we actually create those experiences in a very different way? And I think with technology, with the sustainability, which is, making more, sort of operations efficient, and how do we actually make and go to the next generation of hotels? And I think that needs to be genuine. It needs to be not loud. It needs to be comfortable, and it needs to be very focused towards our guests and what they really want.
All right, Claude. Now comes the. We had our serious discussion about the future and visions and so on, but now this is called off the mic. And it's basically, you've given us such an inspiration, hospitality future, but we'd like to find out a little bit more about the personality behind the persona. So are you ready for a couple of lighthearted questions?
I am, yes. Looking forward to these questions.
Claude, when you're not shaping the future of hotels, where do you personally feel most at home?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think I've become a modern nomad. So I have mixed backgrounds, and because of where my projects have led me, means that I'm not actually in one place for very long. And so I really genuinely believe that I've become a modern nomad. So
Okay.
my children are in Milan. My son's in Milan. My daughter's in Den Haag. My wife is in Austria, and I'm based out of Saudi Arabia. So, you know, I feel home in everywhere I go, and I just adapt into various different environments. It's just the way that I've been brought up in a way, but that's the way that I see myself.
Yeah. So, so basically, you're traveling. So you're traveling lightly, I'm sure. So, if you could only pack 3 items for a trip, what would they be?
My phone, my mobile phone, um, my wash bag, and a good book. I love reading whilst I'm traveling. So those are the things that I really want to be connected. That's the reason why I want the mobile phone.
Yeah,
And everything else is not a problem if you can actually get that in any destination. But for me, it's more being connected to everywhere, wherever I go. And with the mobile phone today, it is also the information provider as well. So you can actually use it for all sorts of different things. So
sure. What's one travel experience that completely surprised you in a good way?
I was in South Africa, um, in a place in KwaZulu-Natal area, and the whole journey was quite an experience. Having met King Goodwill, which was the king of the Zulu kings, and then this led us to. We were taken to this place called 9 Mile Beach, which is on the border between Mozambique and South Africa, and it's a nature reserve, so there is no human interaction at all, and all the fauna and flora has been reintroduced in that area, and it's a protected area. And we had the privilege to be able to. We were granted access to go there and experience that for 24 hours. Um, and it was the first time that I actually was connected to nature. There was no light pollution or noise pollution. Everything was, I was completely engaged into nature. And it was quite surreal because when I came back, and I was based in Dubai at the time, I came back to the noise, and it was kind of one of those incredible experiences that I always remember, and it also reminded me that sometimes you need to get away from all the noise and retreat into nature and be earthed in a way. So that's one of the most fundamental and awe-inspiring trips that I've had, amongst the many trips that I've been to as well. So
Okay. Okay. I have 2 questions. And then, if hospitality wasn't your career, what do you think you would be doing instead?
I'm totally love design. So I think it's like what my son is moving into the design world. I would definitely have either been an architect or an interior designer or some sort or another. So I love architecture. I experience it, constant as part of my world professionally, and I'm always inspired by when I speak to the various different inspirators who actually are in the design world. And so
Yeah.
that's my world today. But if I was to start again and I was in the hotel industry, I would definitely have gone into architecture.
So you would be one of those architects wearing all black, right? That's usually the standard uniform.
No, Sam-Erik, I'm a blue person, so you'll always see
Okay.
me in blue.
Very good. Finally, who has influenced your personal philosophy of travel and hospitality the most?
I think the most influential person that I met, quite a long time ago, and I don't think she'll ever remember me, but was a woman called Anushka Hempel, who was the creator of the Hempel Hotel in London. And she was the first one who really conceived the idea, in inverted commas, of the boutique hotel, in a very unique way. And I really liked her style because whatever she believed in is what she brought into the experience and the design that she created within the Hempel and the Blakes in Amsterdam and the Blakes in London. And so I was always inspired by her approach to, because she was connected to the hotel world, but also connected to design, and she's influenced my whole sort of outlook to the way I look at things, especially within the hotel world. So Anoushka Hempel is perhaps one of those indirect influential people that's influenced me in terms of the way that I look at things today.
Very good. So Claude Attala's vision challenges us to rethink what hotels should be, not just a bed for the night, but a place to connect, transform, and find meaning. So I'll leave you with these. Would you embrace a hotel that becomes part of your lifestyle, or do you still want that traditional escape? So put it in your comments. So Claude, thank you very much for joining me today, and to everyone watching. If you enjoy this conversation, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more thought-provoking discussions, and stay tuned. You get the incredible lineup ahead.